First of all, prepare a 10mm Allen wrench. Then the Torx wrench of 17mm, 19mm, and a 24mm, 27mm Torx wrench. This is a small shearing machine. There is also a feeler gauge and a 24mm socket wrench. For removing blades, first you need to remove all of these and left and right guardrails. The guardrails have now been removed. Now we are ready to start disassembling the tool. Using a socket wrench, first remove all the lower blades. Remove all the screws from the lower blade. Tear it all down. When dismantling, remove all the lower blades. Then we'll disassemble and assemble it. Disassemble the upper blade. When the blades are all removed, they are complete. Let's get started. Disassemble and assemble the upper blade. Start by turning on the oil pump. Because the blade has a shear angle. So when we remove the last blade, the screw of the last blade creates interference. You'll need to turn on the oil pump. Adjust the clipping angle to a minimum. Adjust to a parallel plane. Look at parallel planes. So we can take out the last screw. Then use a 24mm Torx wrench. You can move this back gauge to the very back first. Turn off the oil pump. Then disassemble and install the blade. Use a 24mm box and wrench to disassemble everything. Before removing the blade screw, be sure to leave the screws on it. Otherwise your hand will be caught when you extract the blade. Very dangerous. Before removing these screws, there are 2 screws on it. When installing the blade, install the upper blade first. Then install the lower blade. The blade screw has a bevel. This forms a snap-on position. Form a snap fit with this position. If not, we can turn until the screw cannot be turned. After the blade is installed, check if there are any gaps here. If there is a gap, we use wood to pry it down. Tighten the screws. After the blade is installed, we make a knife edge gap adjustment. First, adjust the gap to the maximum position. Turn on the oil pump. The upper knife should be fitted with the lower knife and close the ball valve. How to make the upper blade and the lower blade fit together? First, you need to turn on the oil pump. Turn on the oil pump, then step on the foot switch and close the ball valve in time. Now there is a gap between the upper blade and the lower blade. Now we use the feeler gauge. Adjust the gap. First, adjust the gap to the minimum position. Until it can't move. Then we use the feeler gauge. Measure the distance between the left and right sides. The minimum value is usually 0.03 mm or 0.04 mm. Now the 0.03 mm feeler gauge can pass. We check whether the 0.06 mm feeler gauge can pass. 0.06 mm feeler gauge can pass. We continue to measure with a larger feeler gauge to see if the 0.07 mm feeler gauge can pass. The 0.07 mm feeler gauge cannot pass. Then we use a 0.05 mm feeler gauge to adjust. A 0.05 mm feeler gauge. Make adjustments. First, you need a wrench. You need to use a wrench to loosen the large nut. All the large nuts are loosened. Then use hexagonal wrench. Loosen the outermost screw. Then use a 17 mm, 19 mm wrench to adjust. Note that the middle screw is pushed inwards. The outermost screw is retracted outwards. Now pay attention to the blade gap. Slightly tighten the middle screw to make the gap smaller. Now the 0.05 mm feeler gauge is very tight, so let's tighten the outermost screw a little bit. Tighten with a wrench. Note that this screw must be tightened a little loose now. Then we need to make adjustments. It doesn't seem so tight now, but can't get through it either. Now we use a 0.04 mm feeler gauge to retest. .04 feeler gauge cannot pass. Tighten the outermost screw to shrink. Now the 0.04 mm feeler gauge can be passed. Check whether the 0.05 mm feeler gauge can pass. The 0.05 mm feeler gauge does not pass. 0.04 mm feeler gauge can pass. 0.4 mm filler gauge can pass. 0.5 mm filler gauge cannot pass. The right side has now been adjusted. Then we go to the left side and make adjustments. Check if the 0.5 mm filler gauge passes. A 0.4 mm filler gauge can pass. If you can't pass, we adjust the outermost screw. After both sides confirm the completion. A 0.05 mm filler gauge can pass. That means the gap is still a bit big. Let's make the gap smaller. The 0.05 mm filler gauge cannot pass. A 0.04 mm filler gauge can be passed. That means both sides have been adjusted. Then tighten the screw. Then adjust slowly from the second screw back. Then adjust the second. First check whether the 0.04 mm filler gauge can pass, because there is a layer of oil on the blade, so when adjusting the blade gap, the oil on the blade needs to be removed. Clean. Then making adjustments. If the 0.04 mm filler gauge can pass, then tighten the middle screw so that the screw pushes inward. If it can't pass, we need to loosen the screw and the middle. Tighten the outermost screw. Tighten the hexagon socket screw. It shrinks outwards. Let us take a look. This is a top wire. This top screw pushes the knife seat forward. On the contrary, if there is a gap here, pull this screw. This knife holder retracts outwards. After the blade gap adjustment is completed, open the ball valve. Then adjust the cutting angle to the maximum position. Adjust the gap. Then cut.